All right, today we're going to do part 5 of Way of the Warrior Kid. We're picking up with chapter 18, Chasing Records and Breaking Plateaus. Just when you think you know what pain is, there's more. This week I learned about pain. Everything had been going along smoothly, and I felt like I was doing a pretty good job of working and making some real improvements. I was up to 35 push ups, and I was doing 9 repetitions of my new exercise Uncle Jake had taught me called dips. My swimming was coming along, so I was getting a lot better and was feeling pretty strong in just about everything except the most important thing, pull-ups. That's right, despite all the hard work that I'd put myself through the last month, I was stuck on pull-ups. The most I'd gotten in a row was 4, and I seemed to be stuck there. Each workout, I would do a few more push-ups, and a few more dips, and a few more squats, and a few more sit-ups. Then, every time I would do more. But the last few workouts, I've been stuck on 4 pull-ups, and I didn't know what to do. I'm stuck, Uncle Jake. I can't get past 4 pull-ups, and I don't know what to do. Well, you've been following the workout, and you've improved what you've been eating, so that must be a plateau. What's a plateau? I asked. It's when you reach a level that you aren't breaking through. You're not improving the way you should be. Sometimes the body just adapts to stress you put on it and it stops improving. Oh man, I said, that's horrible. Does that mean I won't be able to get 10 pull ups? Or even 5? Uncle Jake shook his head. No, he said, it doesn't mean that at all. It just means you need to break through your plateau. How do you do that? I wondered. Well, you know how I said your body has adapted to the stress you put on it from working out? Yeah, I guess. I was pretty sure I understood. Well, here's what's happening. You make your body work hard or you stress the body, and then in order to deal with that stress, the body builds muscles and gets stronger, and it adapts to that stress. So my body has adapted a little, I asked? Actually, your body has adapted a lot. You've gotten better in every exercise, and you're just stuck. We'll get through that. How? I asked. Simple. More stress. More stress? I didn't like the sound of that at all. Yeah, more stress. We're going to push you harder, the hardest you've ever been pushed in all your workouts. And we'll do a workout specifically based on stressing your pull up muscles to smash that plateau and get your pull up numbers increasing. Be ready for a good workout tomorrow morning. Good? What do you mean by good? I asked, worried that Uncle Jake's definition of the word good might be a little different than mine. I guess I mean pain. Be ready for some pain in the morning. That's exactly what I was afraid of, I said. The next morning workout was psycho. It started off pretty normal. We did some push ups and some sit ups and some squats. Then we got to the pull ups, and Uncle Jake said, today you're going to do 100. Pull ups? I asked in shock. Yes, pull ups. You're going to do 100. Maybe you're forgetting, but I can't even do 4 pull ups, Uncle Jake. How the heck am I going to do 100? I asked. However you can, Uncle Jake answered. However you can. Now get up there and get started. I stepped on the box, reached for the bar, and did my first set of 4. Good, Uncle Jake said. Now do it again. I grabbed the bar and did another 4. That's 8, Uncle Jake said. Keep going. I took a little rest, then reached up the bar and did another 3. All right, that's 11. 89 to go. So that meant I was going to do 100 pull-ups, but not in a row, but in sets. And since I could only do 4 at most, it meant I was going to be here for a while. But I kept going and going and going, and I was able to do a set of 3 for a while, but then around 50, I could only do sets of 2. And when I got to 80, I could only do 1 pull-up at a time. And right in the middle of number 87, I felt a pain in my hand. When I got off the bar, I looked at my right hand, and one of my calluses had been ripped off. There was a trickle of blood coming out. I think I'm done, I said to Uncle Jake, showing him my hand. 13 more, Uncle Jake said. But my hand hurts, I told him, hoping he'd have mercy on me. 13 more, Uncle Jake said again. I stepped up to the box and grabbed the bar, and I did another one. It hurt, then I did another one. And I adjusted my grip, so I was holding it with just my fingers. And then I found it hurt less, and I did another one, and then another one, and then a few more. Then finally I finished 100 pull-ups. My hands were sore and bloody, and I had blood on my shirt, and I was sweating, but I had done it. Good job, Mark, Uncle Jake said. Then in a very serious tone he added, we don't quit, ever. I nodded, and I felt really good, really good. The next day, Uncle Jake told me not to work out at all, and at that night he took me to a movie and to the classic malt shop for a double cheeseburger. 3 days later, I got up on the bar and I did 6 pull-ups. I was on my way. The plateau had been broken, but I had not been. Chapter 9. President's Capitals and Gettysburg. If you thought for a minute that mastering the times tables would be enough for me to learn during the summer, think again. My Uncle Jake had other ideas. He wanted me to learn a bunch of other stuff too. And once I got the timetables in less than 3 minutes, he made me make flashcards of every state in America and the capital of every state. Now he wanted me to learn every president we've ever had. I had no idea I was going to do that. So Uncle Jake sat down and he told me to write down every single president on a piece of paper. Like flashcards, I asked? No, not this time. Just write them down on a piece of paper in a row of 2. Okay, Uncle Jake walked out of the room and I pulled out a book from school about the presidents. And then I wrote them all down in 2 rows, like he said. Just as I finished up, Uncle Jake came back into my room and I showed him the list. Good, he said. Now let's trailblaze. What's that? I asked. It's another way to memorize things. Things that are longer and not direct question and answer, like the presidents or the Gettysburg Address. What's the Gettysburg Address? I asked. What's the Gettysburg Address? Really? All right, we'll get to that later, but right now let's focus on the presidents. Look at them and memorize the first 10. I'll give you 5 minutes. With that, Uncle Jake walked out of the door. Now, what was I going to do? How could I ever memorize these in 5 minutes? I looked down at the paper. Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, Adams, Jackson, Van Buren, Harrison, Tyler. I read through them again. Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, Adams, Jackson, Van Buren, Harrison, Tyler. And I did it again and again. Then Uncle Jake came back in. You got it memorized yet? He said. I thought you might be kidding, but he wasn't. No, I said, not even close. That's okay. No one can memorize that fast, but you can definitely memorize that easily. Now take one last look at those first 10, but focus on the first 4. I looked down at the paper again, looking at the first 4. Washington, Adams, Jefferson, and Madison. Okay, Washington, Adams, Jefferson, and Madison. Okay, Uncle Jake said, so as he snatched up the paper. Go. Washington, Adams, Jefferson. I knew the next one began with an M, but I couldn't remember the rest of it. Mad. Uncle Jake gave me a hint. Madison? Yeah. Now look at the paper and then start over again at the beginning. And down the trail you go. You've already got it made. But just try to go a little bit further down the trail each time. I looked at the paper and saw Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe. Uncle Jake flipped the paper over and I started again. Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe. Yeah, Uncle Jake said. And who's after Monroe? I actually have no idea. Then, okay, that's okay. Just look at the paper. I looked down and saw Monroe, and after Monroe was Adams. I thought to myself, Monroe, Adams, Monroe, Adams, Monroe, Adams. You ready? Uncle Jake said. Yeah, I guess, I replied. Go, from the beginning. Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, Adams. Yeah, Uncle Jake said. That's it. Each time you get stumped, you stop to take a look and think about how it ties into what you know, and then go back to the beginning or wherever you started and try to memorize the beginning of the trail. I just want you to finish the first 10 tonight, and I'll test you on them in the morning. And that was it. It was a simple system, and it worked. I kept repeating the presidents I knew, and then when I got stumped, I would check the paper, look at it, and try to memorize the next one, and then put the paper down and go back to the beginning. I didn't always get it right, and I got stumped a few times really bad. I had to go back and look at the paper 6 times for Van Buren. What kind of name is Van Buren anyway? But I got them memorized. The next morning, as soon as I rolled out of bed, Uncle Jake was there. Go, he said. Go where? I asked. I was still a little groggy. The presidents. Let's hear the first 10. Oh yeah, I said. Here they are. Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe. Adams, Jackson, Van Buren, Harrison, Tyler. Ah, boom. Uncle Jake got a smile out of that. Good job, Mark, he said. Good job. Thanks, Uncle Jake. We headed down for the morning workout? So he said yes. So for the next 4 nights, you can keep working and memorizing the presidents. And once you have those, you can move on to the Gettysburg Address. You still haven't even told me what that is, Uncle Jake. Well, first you have to know about the Battle of Gettysburg, Uncle Jake said. He told me all about it. It was a brutal battle in the Civil War near the town of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Almost 50,000 men were killed or wounded in 3 days of fighting. And after the battle was over, President Lincoln came out to the site and gave a speech called the Gettysburg Address. Although the speech was only 10 sentences long, and President Lincoln spoke for only 2 minutes, Uncle Jake says it was one of the best speeches ever. Uncle Jake said everyone should memorize that speech, and Mark says he will try. Chapter 20, Mark versus Goliath on the mat. My whole world changed today. I went to jiu-jitsu class this afternoon, and when I walked onto the mat, there was a new kid there. He looked about my age, maybe a year older, but he was much, much bigger. In fact, he was as big, if not even bigger, than Kenny Williamson. I mean, he was really big. Just like the other days when new kids show up to class, the instructor pulled the new kid aside and taught him the basic jiu-jitsu movements while we were warming up and doing our basic drills for the day. The new kid's name was Jimmy. After warming up, the instructor sat us down to go over some new moves. We spent more time drilling those moves, and then finally it was time to roll. I did a round against the usual kids that all train with me all the time. A round with Jeff, a round with Craig, a round with Andy, a round with Nora, and then Dean. Some of them beat me, and I beat some of them. It basically boils down to who has been training the longest or the most. The kids with the most experience typically win. The whole time I was sparring with the other students, Jimmy was standing on the side watching. Then, one of those rounds, the instructor said, "Mark, come over here and train with Jimmy, okay?" I walked over to Jimmy. Now that I was standing near him, I realized how absolutely huge he was. He was definitely bigger than Kenny Williamson, and I held out my hand. Jimmy grabbed my hand and squeezed, not crazy like he wanted to hurt me, but he gave it a squeeze, and I could feel how intensely strong he was. I started to get nervous. What if this big monster goes crazy and tries to hurt me? What if he doesn't even know his own strength and ends up breaking my arm or my legs or my spine? My nervousness turned to fear, and I was afraid. I looked at the instructor and said, "Sir, he's a lot bigger than me. Maybe Jimmy should go up with one of the bigger kids." The instructor smiled and said, "You'll be fine. Now go ahead and train." So I squared off with Jimmy. We slapped hands, and it was go time. Still scared, I scared around the circle for a distance, maintaining my focus on Jimmy. Jimmy seemed hesitant too. He kind of kept looking at me like he was waiting for something to happen, and I circled even more. He waited some more, and I circled around him even more, and he kept waiting. Then I realized something. The reason Jimmy wasn't doing anything was because he had no idea what to do. He knew nothing. No single or double leg takedowns, no arm locks, no chokes, nothing. He had no idea how to fight. Now, me, on the other hand, I was no pro, but I had certainly learned some good stuff over the last 6 weeks in jiu-jitsu class. That is what my instructor said I would be fine, because he knew that I knew jiu-jitsu. And as soon as I looked at Jimmy's face, my confidence went up, and I decided to go for it. I reached toward Jimmy's face with my hand to distract him for a moment, and his eyes blinked. And he reached back to block my hand, and at that moment, I shot underneath his hands and grabbed both his legs for a double leg takedown. Almost instantly, I had my arms wrapped around both of his legs, and I squeezed them together as I pushed him back to the side with my head. Unable to step back and regain his balance because my arms were around his legs, he began to fall down, and he hit the mat, and I immediately got control of him and held him down. He pushed hard against me, but it didn't matter. Even though he was bigger and stronger than I was, it didn't matter. He didn't know any technique, and in jiu-jitsu, technique trumps over strength and size. The next thing I did was move into the mount position, and as soon as I did that, Jimmy began to get wild. He bucked his hips and thrashed from side to side, and finally pushed his arms straight into my chest to try to get me off it. This is the thing people do when they don't know how to do jiu-jitsu. That is why we drilled hundreds of times. When someone tries to push you off, they leave their arms wide open to get arm locked. And that's exactly what I did. In a flash, I spun around, threw my leg over his head, and sat back with his arm under my control. And once I had his arm extended, I squeezed my legs together and slowly raised my hips to apply the tension. And almost instantly, Jimmy tapped out. That was it. I just tapped out a bigger kid, bigger even than Kenny Williamson, and I almost couldn't believe it. I looked at my instructor who had been watching, and he smiled and nodded at me. Then he gave me a stern look. The stern look was to remind me to stay humble in defeat or in victory, and show good sportsmanship and honorable behavior. I got to my feet, then reached down to Jimmy to help him stand up. I said, "Good job. You're really strong." He looked disappointed and surprised and said, "Well, it didn't even matter. You're really good at this stuff." Stay humble, I thought to myself. And as I said, "It's just that I've been training a lot longer than you. Don't worry, it's easy to learn and you'll pick up fast as long as you keep training." "Oh, I'm definitely going to keep training. Don't you worry about that." I wasn't worried at all. In fact, I was happy. Jimmy was nice, but he was also big, and that meant I got to train with someone as big as Kenny Williamson all the time. The more I train, the more comfortable I'll be, so I was happy that Jimmy would keep training, and I would keep training too. Chapter 21, Super Aquaman. Today I learned something that I'll never forget. Today I learned about fear and how to beat it. Ever since I swam across the river on my own, swimming has gotten easier and easier, and Uncle Jake has still been taking me to the river every other day, and we've still been having a lot of fun. And I've become pretty comfortable in the water. I can swim to the other side and look back really easily. I'm relaxed when I'm treading water. I can even swim about halfway across the river, completely underwater. But today I almost forgot about all that comfort. Today I felt fear because today was the day Uncle Jake wanted me to jump off that bridge into the water. I thought it was going to be just another day of swimming. We got down to the river, started swimming around, and doing what we've been doing, and then Uncle Jake called me back to the sandy little beach by the riverbank. And I swam over, kind of showing off my skills, and when I stood up, he said, "Today is the day." I wasn't quite sure what he was talking about. "What day?" I asked. "The bridge," he said, as he nodded toward the huge bridge that spanned the river. For some reason, and I can't explain why, I went into a little panic. The bridge, I thought? The bridge, it was tall. And even though I was comfortable in the water, when I thought about it, jumping from that bridge and landing into the water, I didn't know. I must have completely freaked out. So I decided maybe today wasn't a good day for the bridge, and I had to make it into a big make I had to make it no big deal. "I think I'd rather just swim today," Uncle Jake said. I said to Uncle Jake. "We can go to the bridge and jump next time." As I finished my sentence, I started actually turning around toward the river like I was going to keep swimming. "Hey," Uncle Jake said sharply and quickly. I tried to ignore him for another half of a second. "Hey," barked Uncle Jake, this time louder with more force. A force I knew I couldn't ignore anymore, and I turned around and faced him. "You're going off that bridge today," he said in a matter-of-fact way. That means Uncle Jake is 100% set in his mind, and his mind will not change. But I couldn't help myself from trying to change it anyway. "It's okay, Uncle Jake. I'm just going to swim today. I'll jump off that." "It's okay," Uncle Jake cut me off. "You're going off that bridge." I knew that arguing was useless. And once Uncle Jake had made up his mind, there's no reasoning with him. And more important, I knew deep inside that he was right. I was ready to jump off that bridge. I was just terrified. "Okay, okay," I told Uncle Jake, trying to seem cool about the whole situation. And as I slowly started walking up the riverbank toward the bridge, "I'll watch you from down here," said Uncle Jake. "Okay," I said softly, and I kept walking, and with each step I took, I got more and more terrified about the jump. Time started to slow down. I don't even know why I was scared, but I was. And finally I got to the spot on the bridge where I was supposed to jump. Looked down over the edge. How did that river get so far down? "Okay, let's go, Mark," Uncle Jake shouted up to me. I couldn't even respond. I just stood there. "Go ahead, Mark, jump." I still couldn't say anything, but I stepped over the little fence along the side of the bridge and shuffled toward the edge where I was supposed to jump. I looked straight ahead and was really thinking of doing it. Then I looked down and I got overwhelmed and scared, and I just stood there. "What's the issue, Mark?" Uncle Jake yelled up to me. I don't know what to say. "What's wrong?" he asked again louder. I just sat there on the little wall along the edge of the bridge, and then I saw Uncle Jake walking up toward the bridge, obviously coming to either yell at me or throw me off. But when he got up to me, he didn't yell at all. Come to think of it, Uncle Jake hardly ever yells. "What's going on, buddy?" he said in a calm voice. "I don't know," I said. I'm just, "You're afraid, aren't you?" Uncle Jake said. But he wasn't asking, he knew. He knew I was scared. There was no point in denying it. Uncle Jake knew as plain as day. "Yeah," I said in a quiet tone, embarrassed that I was afraid. Then to my surprise, Uncle Jake said, "That's normal." "What?" I responded, shocked at Uncle Jake's statement. I said, "That's normal. You're doing something you've never done before, so it's normal to be a little hesitant. It's called fear. It's a normal emotion, and it's okay." Then he added, "Well, if it's okay, as long as you can control it." That made no sense to me. How am I supposed to control fear? And and how would you know even? You're not even afraid of anything. Uncle Jake sat quietly for a minute, then said, "I wish that were true." "What do you mean?" I asked him. "Well, you said I'm not afraid of anything, and that's just not true. Fear is normal, and in fact, fear is good. Fear is what warns you when things are dangerous, and fear is what makes you prepare. Fear keeps us out of a lot of trouble, and there's nothing wrong with fear, but fear can be overwhelming. It can be unreasonable, and it can cause you to freeze up and make bad decisions or hesitate when you need to act. So you have to learn to control fear, and that's what you need to do right now. Okay, that sounds great, and I would really love to make you happy and overcome fear, but I don't know. Uncle Jake thought about what I just asked him a few seconds ago and said, okay, well, the first part of controlling your fear you've already done, and that's the preparation. You've done plenty of preparation to be ready for the moment, to face the fear. Starting with dunking your head all the way up to swimming all around back and forth across the river, and you've done little jumps off the riverbank. In the last several weeks, we've been preparing you for this, the jump. All the preparation works to help you overcome the fear. Imagine how scared you'd be if you still didn't know how to swim. You would be horrified, but you have prepared. Then why am I scared? I asked Uncle Jake. Simple, he said, because there is an element of the unknown. You've never jumped off anything that high before, so you don't know what it feels like. People are afraid of what they don't know and what they don't understand. But you have prepared, and you know it is safe, and you're ready. Is it just the last bit of fear that you have to overcome, and you know how to do that? I have no idea, I told him. You go. You just go? I asked Uncle Jake. I was partially thinking he was joking. Yeah, you just go. You see, fear lives in the moment. That's powerful. Between when you decide you're going to do something and when you can do it. And once you go, you just start and you won't be afraid anymore. You overcome the fear by going. And then it's the same in many aspects of life. Parachuting, talking in front of a crowd, taking a test, running a race, competing in jiu-jitsu. The fear is the waiting. So once you're prepared and trained and studied and planned, there's only one thing left to do. Go. And that's it. Yeah, that's it. As soon as Uncle Jake finished those words, he stood up, looked at me, and yelled, "Hoo-ah!" and jumped off the bridge. Just go, I thought to myself. He stood up, stepped onto the edge of the wall, and looked down at Uncle Jake, who had just came back to the surface and was looking at me with a big smile on his face. With all my heart and lungs, I yelled out, "Hoo-ah!" and I stepped off the edge of the bridge, past my fear, and into the unknown. I felt myself falling for a while, and then whoosh, I was in the water. I came to the surface and had a big smile on my face. "I can fly," I yelled, "I can fly." Uncle Jake laughed, and he got up and ran and jumped again, and I followed him without hesitation. And then when he did it again and again and again, and the fear, it was gone. All I had to do was prepare and get ready, and then I just had to take the first step and go. All right, so we've got one more part left. Thank you for listening. That was part 5 of Way of the Warrior Kid. We're almost there. Let's see what happens to Mark.